I would kindly ask those who would like to take part in the workshop to come to the front. So, good morning, everyone. It is an honor for me to, as Christalena Kattami, vocational rehabilitation counselor in LPAB, and as work team leader in the network to moderate this workshop. It is a workshop on the Greek legislation, and I believe that we're at a turning point given the changes in the Greek legislation since the beginning of the year. And the landscape seems to be changing, providing us with tools as well as enabling us to consult the people we work with, telling them that, yes, the labor market is not prohibited for you because your fundamental rights will not be affected. This is a key tool for us. And I believe that everything that we need to see now what we're going to do from now on. So I would like to kindly ask Mrs. Katsouda to come to the stage. Well, she's been in charge of supported employment in Theotokos, president of LTP, and she's very knowledgeable of the EU affairs, and she will be able to paint a picture of the current legislative framework in Greece and give us advice on what should be done, or her views on what should be done. Kaiti. Thank you. I believe you can hear me. Okay, good morning, everyone. I would like to thank the organizers for inviting us here and giving me the opportunity in this conference to talk about supported employment in Greece. I will talk about the legislation concerning employment of people with disabilities in Greece, because first and foremost, so far, there had been no such legislation in Greece. Supported employment dates back to 1996 and has been going on to date. There are some organizations, old and new, that implement supported employment programs, which are mostly NGOs, whereas there is no supported employment in the public sector so far. The Hellenic Association of Support Employment is an umbrella organization for the services and organizations that offer such programs of supported employment. We're going to talk about the legislation. We will briefly go through a few pieces of information, and it's worth dwelling on certain laws that can be linked to supported employment. Am I the first to take the floor? This is your presentation. Sorry, we need some help here.
Να αλλάξουμε το PowerPoint. Να αλλάξει το PowerPoint, γιατί αυτό είναι της δεύτερης ομιλήτριας.
Okay.
Ωραία. Έχω γράψει για μια διαφάνεια
Okay, so I've prepared this slide regarding the legislation on the employment of people. There's a problem with the microphone of the speaker.
Ναι.
Okay, now it's working. Thank you. So we'll talk about Law 4074 of 2012. A simple reference to it. It ratifies the Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities and the optional protocol. It was in April 2012. And through this convention, member states, in essence, agree, or rather ratify the convention, and which is on equal access to work, employment, and non-discrimination, or the elimination of discriminations, says the lady. I would like to recall Article 27 of the UN Convention regarding employment. The member states recognize the right of people with disabilities to employment on an equal basis with others. And this includes their right to their ability to work on to live on their work, and they will be accepted to an open market work environment. Member states ensure and promote the realization of this right to work, including those people who acquire an ability during their work life, taking appropriate measures, including legislation. So in essence, what this article tells us is that, first of all, work is a right, and then women about paid work. In other words, they will be able to live on their work. So anything that is not paid is something else, not work. Could be volunteering, could be unpaid, protected work, but it's not work. In an inclusive environment, in the open labor market. So inclusive environment means that we have all reasonable adjustments that need to be made. So what is described, in all these years, I've been dealing with supported employment, supported work. in essence, the definition of supported employment is that is the delivery of they enjoy paid work in an inclusive environment. And this is in line with Article 27 of the UN Convention.
Η Ελλάδα μέσω της
Greece, through the national strategy for disability, has set specific targets regarding people with disabilities, and support employment is at the heart of this strategy. It combines all sorts of policies, including and incentives. We were told about this by the ministers yesterday morning, that supported employment is part of the national strategy on disability. So in the case of Greece, supported employment is an easier case than easier cause than in other EU member states. Because what I mean to say is that in Greece, apart from social entrepreneurship, we have no other model that would contribute to the professional rehabilitation or occupational rehabilitation of people with disabilities. There was a law on productive workshops, which never took effect, in fact. We have no protected employment as there is in the rest of Europe. And the reason is that there's the protected employment, which has been fully consolidated for many, many years, and all the financing was directed there. But in Greece, indeed, we have the opportunity to have the supported employment model, which is the most effective and most contemporary and is evidence-based currently regarding occupational rehabilitation and inclusion of people with disabilities in the open market. Okay, I should go a bit faster. Another law which is relevant and can be combined with support employment. This is Law 2643 of 1998 regarding quotas. In essence, this law provides for the fact that businesses with over 50 employees has to hire people with disabilities, has to recruit people with disabilities. The amending law is a favorable law because it has increased the quota regarding people with disabilities in the public sector. It's 10%. 10% people with disabilities with a disability of over 50%, and 55% for people with for family members of people with disabilities. So 5% of family members of people with disabilities must be hired in the public sector. In the former case, we have the higher council for recruitments, and for the latter case, we have DIPA responsible for these recruitments. Now, regarding and how we can combine it with support employment, the implementation of Law 2640 through 1998, the problems there is the lack of information regarding lack of information of people with disabilities. They don't not aware of this right. There is also prejudices among employers that preventing the recruitment of people with disabilities. deficient audit mechanisms regarding the implementation of the recruitment obligations. Well, in essence, this law is not implemented by all companies in the private sector because nobody controls the implementation or audits the implementation, and there is no penalty if somebody fails to comply with the law. Now, the job advertisements are not aligned with the legal provisions. Well, such job advertisements should take place every year, but they only occur every 3 or 5 years. And there has been none recently. And when there was one, the recruitments actually never took place. Proposals for improvement of this law, well, improve the inspection audit mechanisms and penalties, consistency in job advertisements or calls for competitions, information awareness raising campaigns in order to eliminate stereotypes and to tear down the barriers in the private sector. Because the private sector is not easily convinced to recruit people with disabilities. Information awareness raising campaigns for employers in order to tear down stereotypes in the private sector. Additional incentives to businesses, employers, and enactment of financing of supported employment. I could tell you that support employment could take effect in the public sector, could be implemented in the public sector, since there is already a quota enacted there. And this could be very useful, and this could be very useful because the way things have been happening so far, especially in the public sector, these people are hired, they are left on their own devices in some sort of bailiff or other lower staff job, low-grade job rather, and they never get any on-the-job training to identify the suitability or the fitness of the person, and therefore they're not useful. They can't become useful and efficient. So this is the law on equal treatment of 4443. This is regarding the equal treatment of people with disabilities before, during, and after recruitment in the workplace. The law 4488 of 2017 is very important. It is about the various benefits of people with disabilities, including, well, it is the preservation of benefits of people with disabilities. It is about people with intellectual, physical, and mental disabilities, as well as people with mental diseases. And all these groups, once they are hired or recruited, once it is established that this is for their social psychosocial rehabilitation, they will not lose their benefits. This is very important because it has lifted all the barriers, this law, and all the difficulties we had to convince families and people themselves, the actual people with disabilities, to enter the labor market.
Now, let's see the pilot program 4997 of 2022 for people in the autism spectrum. The ministers mentioned that as well. This program has been announced already in 2022. It will be ended in 25, and right now there is an intensification and activation of the ministry. This is a law that was passed for the pilot project. It's the first time that the state talks about the supported employment for these 200 people, and that the program will go on for this supported employment. It talks about the obligations of the employers regarding the adaptation and their their remuneration, incentives for the businesses. The incentives is funding, full funding of the salaries, the beneficiaries, people in the spectrum, the job coaches, which are the mediators. It talks about education. There is no mention here. We are waiting for the joint ministerial decision. DIPA, the employment service, the public employment service, will finance that, will run that. The funding comes from the RRF, approximately 9.5 million. And what we need to see for this law and what has to be done, I think, is, first of all, that it must not fail. We have to make sure that this endeavor is successful and to have, in the meantime, a framework that will be the trigger for the law for supported employment and therefore funding. Thank you very much, Mrs. Katsouda. I would like to focus on a new law, 5078 of 2024, which shapes and changes the landscape as regards the possibility to have access to the labor market for all people with disabilities. So if we can preserve the benefits, the disability pension, and at the same time to be able, as people with disabilities and as pensioners, to continue to provide work, this law paves the way to all our fellow citizens with disabilities. I'm talking about motor disabilities, brain damage, where we do not have the nice paragraph that due to mental diseases and mental needs, the person has to enter the labor market. I think this distinguishes among the various types of disabilities. Moreover, it is important to say that the only point that is not supported by the law is people who have congenital disabilities, who are born with disabilities, and when they can get the pension of the parent, the deceased parent. People who are not included in this, in the mental diseases will lose that. I mean, speaking with a beneficiary that we know, a child from ELEPAP, I can't describe his joy. He said that from right on, I will enter the labor market. And then he said, my lawyer told me that I am excluded from this. Maybe we should look into that. Another part that we could examine is that in law 2643, one member of the family can be included in positive discriminations. If another member, a brother, a parent, has made use of this right that the candidate could use, he is excluded. She is excluded from this right. This family can get the rights from something else, that is to get the benefits for a family with many children, etc. For me, a major challenge right now is the law about the ASEP, the Supreme Council for Personnel Selection. And this paves the way for people with disabilities to enter the labor market. and it has to do only with people with disabilities and not the broader picture of vulnerable persons. This is also a major challenge. So we see that there is a positive force. Paths are opened because I said that as a rehabilitation consultant, it is very important to be able to give all the information to the beneficiary and their family in order to make an educated decision about their future. The law provides a lot of rights, and I think we should exploit them to the fullest, to the maximum. And the legislation for the autism spectrum. And let me say one more thing. In the call for the jobs that are now tendered with ASEP, these are very isolated cases. I have a young person with brain damage. Then he was diagnosed with a tumor in the brain. He came back to the university. He finished his studies. He's in the US. He's attending programs. And when he heard about this call, he was the first who has started to collect the documents. But his benefit was finished on the 31st of August, and the date, the appointment he was given is the 11th of November, but the call for his for this job is the 5th of November. His certification will be re-examined on the 11th of November. So since he has made an application and since the certification for the benefit has been approved 3 times, and since he has prepared his documents, maybe this person could be included in the call. And I'm sure that when the results are publicized, he will get the certification. And finally, regarding the law, we know that the call that was done in 21, the jobs were announced in 2024. And among these jobs is ambulance assistant or waiter in the Flying Dolphins. And these are jobs that one wonders whether persons with disabilities can fulfill these jobs, whether we're talking about people in the spectrum or people with motor disabilities. So there are many things that we need to examine. But it's sure that employment is something that we all are interested in. Now I would like to ask Mrs. Andreadi to talk about the results from the Make It Work project pertaining to people in the spectrum. Good morning. We'll talk about a project that is run by Margarita, Make It Work, the road to vocational inclusion. This is a project co-funded by the European Union and the Bodosakis Foundation. It belongs under the program SERP, which aim to promote and broadly recognize people with disabilities. It is a very good opportunity for Greece to run a program which aims at developing policy proposals. As I said, the Margarita Association is responsible, and the Autism Union in Larissa, which is not a very big urban center in Greece. And through the research we carried out, we get a lot of important information. The project is quite short. It is for 12 months. It started in March 2024. And the objective is to promote supported employment in Greece. It has 6 actions: research, information and awareness raising, exchange of good practices, and there Mrs. Katsouda and Mrs. Kattami were invited together with the French Association ADAPT, and they also showed their way of operating in France. We had also a workshop of awareness raising in Larissa. The largest action of the project is the open dialogue meetings that will be held from December to February. And a final event for the dissemination of the work of the project in February 25. The project has 2 deliverables: research for supported employment in Greece, approach of businesses, beneficiaries and the state, and some policy proposals. This is the second part, the second deliverable. So the research is tripartite. It is addressed to agencies that provide services of supported employment in Greece through their own initiative at will. The second part of the research were questionnaires to employers. The project, project's team had questionnaires addressed to employees in the companies, in the businesses, which are the ones responsible for recruiting, hiring people with disabilities, and to colleagues, that is, colleagues of the people with disabilities who are in a daily contact with them. The third part of the research is interviews among beneficiaries, employed and unemployed, in the 2 associations in Larissa. Now, let's go to the general remarks by employers. The greatest percentage of those are very satisfied with the employee with disability that they have hired. 60% of those questioned are knowledgeable about supported employment, and 80% were so satisfied that they would recommend this to other companies, to other businesses. Let me say indicatively that those who have received supported employment services, they have received either Margarita or Theotokos services. Most employers provide a very pleasant working environment with a healthy collaboration among the employees with disabilities and the typical population. And 27% of the employers did not use any DIPA program from the existing ones, the projects of DIPA, for this recruitment. Let's see now the needs of the employers. In 93% considered that the support of the new employee is necessary to adapt, and all of them underlined that it is very important to have the job coach. There are very many different definitions and terms in Greece, but we will call them job coach. So the presence of the job coach in the area of work was considered as decisive because they ensure how communication, collaboration are fulfilled. We see the main answers, that is that the job coach helped to the better communication with the colleagues, to the organization and execution of plans and daily works, in the shaping of the working environment, which is very important, and the healthy and professional behavior of the person with disability. Moreover, very successful, very important, was considered the contact between the employee and the agency providing the supported employment. Now, the needs of the colleagues, very important, was deemed that the information about the needs of the people with neurodevelopmental disorders, what the colleagues have to pay attention to when they collaborate with a new employee. Again, the role of the job coach was very important in order to timely deal and prevent issues of adjustment, especially as regards the development of communication codes. That is how they can work with their colleagues, and the difficulties of the employees with mental disabilities to follow instructions. Now, let's go to the needs of the beneficiaries. We see here from the answers the percentage.
54.4% are employed, 20% are unemployed without experience, and 25% are unemployed with previous experience. Everyone who was asked, being employed or not, employed or unemployed, responded that they want to have access to the open labor market, either continue their work where they currently are, so they're satisfied with their daily work and job, daily work and life. And among the incentives they mentioned, because most of the beneficiaries, whether they're employed or unemployed, they still live with their families. Therefore, they're not financially independent. But they said that work would also help them with their socialization and improvement of their mental health, or actually their psychology. Now, experience of employees, because the beneficiaries who were asked are beneficiaries of organizations, 100% of them found work through our services. They deemed it very important that the job coach be present throughout this process, and a large percentage of them describes their collaboration with their colleagues at the workplace as excellent. The two largest groups of jobs, actually 50-50, are office work or manual work. Manual jobs or office jobs. As you said, what is missing, I will go fast, I guess, is information about the prospects of paid work. Most of them knew that they could work, but they were not fully informed of the fact that they can receive salaries for their work. And a large percentage responded that they can't use the services of DIPA, or they either haven't tried or they haven't managed. Let's see the responses of the organizations now. The organizations that offer supported employment listed the jobs that are the specialties employed. 67.7% of the organization continue to support him after their recruitment, and some of them don't. We also see on the pie the steps that are followed by the organizations. Each organization follows different steps. A large percentage of the organizations have received some training on supported employment, which is good. But a large percentage of the organization hasn't received any training on the support of employers, those who responded, those that have been trained and those that haven't. They said that they would like to continue to receive training on these matters. The key ways of identifying employers. Well, most importantly, the best way to identify them are employers themselves. Employers approach the organizations in order to hire a person with mental disability. And the challenges that the organizations mentioned on a daily basis. contrary to the results of the other two questionnaires, the organizations mentioned that there are some challenges in the relationships of neurotypical and neurodiverse colleagues. This is something that was not mentioned by people with disabilities. And they also see some challenges regarding the operation, the functions, the operations of DIPA and the disability centers regarding the following, these issues. Now, during this project, we'll have to elaborate policy proposals that will respond to these questions. First of all, the definition of support employment and the legal consolidation of the model. We're still talking about supported employment. We need to define the actors that play a part in support employment. It's very important to find a way to inform the families and the beneficiaries regarding their possibility to have paid work. It's very important to find a way to train the service providers in supported employment, because the job coach profession was mentioned as decisive by all stakeholders. We need to elaborate the job description of the job coach. It is also important to have horizontal training for all employers who recruit people with mental disabilities, intellectual disabilities, and also training of the employees that are about to assume a job, and of course find a financing model for all this, because so far there's been only own financing and initiatives by specific bodies. So the next actions, the following actions, the two meetings that to be held in between December and January next year, the development of further policies and the technical report. Thank you very much. Thank you. So now we have some time for Q&A. But before that, I'd like to introduce something else into our discussion. It's about the community social cooperatives for vulnerable groups and people with disabilities. These are, well, what we see is that currently the social cooperatives find it hard to survive, because we need to abide by the legislation as if we were private enterprises, private businesses, which we are, but when 43% account for salary contribution, salary costs, and 24% is taxation, it's a bit hard. And we also need to abide with all the other provisions. We gave the salary increases, and currently we also need to have the digitization of the working hours, which means that when somebody is sick or when they come to work late, I would have a problem with the let's say law, and this makes it difficult for us to operate, because our revenues are also rather thanks to the volunteers that will support us, as well as the various organizations or providers. But these social cooperatives enable people to feel productive and to deliver services. In our social cooperatives, we have people who have who are contracted in order to proceed to awareness raising and information campaigns in schools and in various other areas. So we need to be flexible to find solutions, and we'd like the state to support us because we want to be, of course, lawful. Now, the Q&A. We're open for the Q&A. Good morning. On the part of the ministry, I would like to say something. First of all, congratulations, very nice presentations, both regarding the research results, because the research is good when it proves what seems to be reasonable or rational. We're talking about a change in culture, a culture change. We're talking we've got the social enterprises and a lot of problems that have to do with the very structure, not the institutional framework, but the choice of setting up social enterprises without having the possibility to do so. The social enterprise need to be business oriented. They can't be a charitable model. It will be successful if it produces. If it can't produce, then it will fail. Regarding recruitment in the public sector, I would personally say that it is a bit what is the safe way. There will be the announcement of a competition for 100 people, and we will hire people with sensory and physical disabilities. The idea is to also talk about people with intellectual disabilities that you represent here, the LEPAP and other organizations. And the question is, what will happen with these people? The state, through the RRF, there is a program that gives priority to them in supported employment. This is something that we announced 2025 and onwards. It won't be only for 2025. It will go on for like other programs, such as the early intervention. Now, regarding supported employment, we're talking about 200 people who will be paid, who will receive a salary, another competitive salary, and there will be there will be provision for a job coach as well under the law. This is something that you had been asking for, you had been struggling for, and now the legislator intervenes and confirms something that has already been a reality in the market. For the Greek state and the Ministry of Social Cohesion and Family, it's not so easy to moving from protected employment to supported employment. So it's a more dynamic approach. This is the innovation now in this new framework. So they will have their personal coach, and there has to be some sort of preparation. According to the legislative framework, the job coach would prepare the person for 6 months before they enter the job, and then they would monitor them and support them in order not to fail during the employment. So there has to be a culture change, and this is something supported by the ministry, but the organizations have to support it as well. Some organizations are not ready to do what they have to do, and the state must also pioneer, take the lead, and not just talk about psychosocial rehabilitation. It should also be about sustenance or survival. So work should not be linked to the disability, but it should be valued as employment, as work. We hope that we will have your support so that we will see the results, more positive results in the future.
Καλημέρα.
Good morning, Katerina Konstantopoulou from Margarita. Ms. Papadaki, thank you very much. This is an excellent conference with a very interesting topic. I will fully agree with Mr. Nikolsky. This is a golden opportunity right now because for the first time over, there's an effort, institutional effort to change the culture. I believe that we should all agree that a culture change is not enough unless there is also an institutional framework in place. Or can you do anything with an institutional framework without a culture change? So the two are necessary at the same time. Organizations need to be mobilized, run campaigns, and work on the culture of change. It was heard a lot yesterday as well. It's very important. However, for us, bureaucrats who work in parallel with the people on the field, we should not miss this opportunity. All this work needs to be translated into an institutional framework. The longer-awaited ministerial decision is very important. It will have to be appropriate because it will pave the way for an integrated institutional framework. We do understand that this article is only the beginning, the start, and we're all here to actively participate and support the ministry so that at long last, with patience and persistence, through the trial and error method, attain something unique for Greece, have a relatively integrated institutional framework for supported employment. It is unbelievable that it's been discussed for the past couple of days, this issue of supported unemployment. So it's very important that in Greece there's a lot of interest in this. Not a couple of organizations like Theotokos or Margarita. It is a need of people, and people in the field need to work hard, and us bureaucrats need to support in shaping a healthy and a sound and complete legislative framework. What we're asking of the ministry is to look into the matter of financing, because words are good and so are efforts, but without financing, we can't make it. There is a ceiling. Of course, there's a ceiling in the state financing, but therefore we need to work together. So, and I wish you all success. Good morning, everyone. I'm Leonis Seras from Ploes. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the president of ELPAP, Ms. Katsouda, and the lady with the Margarita program. I would like to say, I will agree with what Ms. Konstantopoulou said and what everything was said earlier, but this is something very important. That is something very important which has not been highlighted, and it is the need to let people with disability free, set them free. I'm saying this because the mindset that was discussed earlier, the change in culture and attitudes are necessary to understand that these people are not asking for charity. What they're asking is to exercise their constitutional right to work. So we as organizations that have a moral obligation to set them free and enable them to do what they want and support the people, not the disability. This is the key message, and this is what should be included in the piece of legislation regarding the 200 people in the spectrum of autism to enter the labor market, to be hired. And the government must see the people, not the disability of the people. That's what I want to say. Any other intervention, contribution, thought?
Ναι, όχι, θέλω να πάρω το λόγο. Ξέρω, αλλά θέλω να πάρω το λόγο. Εντάξει, όχι, αυτό. Λοιπόν, θέλω να πω...
I'd like to say a few things. Everything that has been said is very important. This program must not fail. On contrary, it must work. And we need to have results because it is our first and possibly, if it succeeds, there won't be need for another program. So we need to work hard and implement it in order to have the best possible results. First. Second, what's been happening lately is that there's all this fuss about supported employment. There's this new law, and lots of people started calling us and saying, okay, you know, I offer, I've had supported employment for a year. It was an organization. I don't want to mention the name. And so was a service provider that was claiming that they were offered a supported unemployment. But after lots of questions and an interview, we realized it was simply a training course, sort of apprenticeship within their facilities. It was not an actual support employment program. So what I mean to say is that what is very important, and we've got Ms. Ioannou here setting the example of cooperative, of social enterprises, because she initiated the Pétarma social enterprise with its principles, philosophy, mission, values, specific standards, with good practices borrowed from abroad. I can recall everything, Ms. Ioannou, and all this. And for me, Pétarma is what we call autonomous or semi-autonomous living, dependent or semi-independent, rather, living within the community with all services defined by the law, so that people can be as independent as possible and make their decisions. So what I mean to say is that support employment has to be initiated in Greece, based on specific standards. There is a philosophy behind it, this change in mindset and everything, but there is also a methodology behind it. This will be ensured by KPIs or quality indicators that already exist in the EU. We actually are members of NACI. We will be trained. We will have to ensure the quality of services. We need to invest in these people, in their training, their occupational rehabilitation, but with quality services, because soon we will not just evaluate the services, but we will evaluate the impact of the services on these people's life. This is what the evaluation or the assessment will be based on for future financing or future financial benefit for us. So we all need to know that the specifications of support employment need to be complied with so as to have good outcomes and to lay, of course, the proper foundation. This is the key thing here.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kula Ioannou. Indeed, we started with the shelters, but I want to declare very proudly that I am a founding member of LTP. While I was in Theotokos, I supported very much the team that organized the supported employment. I see parallel works with the stayers, the shelters, and the supported. Stayers is supported living. I mean that the work has been done. All three of you represent organizations that have worked for years, that have results. Theotokos had the first pensioner who was placed for work in the National Library, and he retired. He had retired around 2000 something. So for these years, you have been working supported employment. The state must understand and support all this knowledge that you have. You have lived with the people, you know their needs, you have seen how proud they become with their work, that they are model employees. They don't play truant, they don't take sick leaves, etc. And try to go faster. The organization started to create supported living in 2000. The legislation was in place in 2007. There was no funding provided. There is new legislation for the funding of the supported living, but we got the money 10 years later in 2017 when we saw all the ministers go by and we exerted pressure on all of them. Yesterday, we had a discussion on quality criteria. This is something that we have asked right from the start for the shelters. It has not been received favorably. You have to exert pressure on that because in employment, it is harder. For the shelters, the parents are overseeing. When the council started and created these shelters, the supported living that is, when we are gone, how will the control take place? And the social worker who comes and checks and sees that there is a good operation beyond everything that is recorded in the legislation and the specifications of the house, the firefighting equipment, and the freezer where they open and see whether the food has expired, etc. There must be a way to check the quality. How many times did you go out? How many times did you go to a coffee shop to have a juice? When did you go to a theater? And what do you want to have a change in your life? These are the quality criteria. You will find out about them and you have to insist on them. Thank you. I want to say that the quality criteria in the services is a must. I mean, it is a must coming from the EU. In the EU, they try to find a single quality label, not for supported employment, but for the services in general, the services provided by our associations, by our organizations. But there is a specific protocol. There is a specific protocol that follows the quality label for supported employment. And I think, because this is how we are compelled to do it, the shelters were first done in Europe and then in Greece. I believe that the quality labels will be the way to go forward and the way to be funded. And when it is centralized, the system, I think that there will be some check, some control of the quality of the services. Thank you very much. Dimitris Saklidas from Margarita. Congratulations for all the presentations. I think we have examine the issue of supported employment, supported living, which starts in 98 and then goes on. Just a brief comment, not a question. I think in the question of quality and the steps in supported employment and what is shown by the experience of those who work is how we focus on the services that we provide to the people. Either we're talking about mental health services or services provided to the families for the transition and for the whole insecurity that exists when the child is leaving a protected environment, Margarita, LEPAP, etc., and is going to the labor market. For me, we need to focus also on the employers, 50-50, because ensuring quality must also be granted for the employers. In July 24, we had a report by the Bank of Greece, which speaks about a large percentage of inactive population that is not enhanced by the country. When we know that there are industries, for instance, in tourism, which lack personnel, not just seasonal personnel, but throughout the year. And when we have good practices of our associations, when we have found a job in the sector of tourism to our people, for instance, a hotel that has branches all over the country, when we have such good practices, we have to go to the outside. We need to support the families, but we need to support the employers. The employers always say that they need support. They have never said that, no, I don't want support. There are so many reports, postdoc research, Esamea and Logaras 15 years ago, research carried out by major associations. We always see the importance and the seriousness of the role and the description of the role of the job coach. Whether we call them job coach, mentor, or mediator, there is a major need to support also the employers apart from the families and the people. I'm not saying this myself, it's themselves who say so. And there is a huge percentage of people that are lost to the country because they are not used as active citizens. Thank you very much. Thank you. I think that the time is up. Thank you for being with us this morning. It is important, I think, that we need to roll up our sleeves and work together with a common objective to support employment, not because it is something that will benefit 1, 2, 200, 1,000. It's because it is right for our country. We have an issue with employment. It is important each member of the society to be able to be productive. And it is important and we have to see how the legislation can be used when an employer does not want, what can be funded, as it happens abroad. If you don't reach your quota, the money that we would give there should be channeled somewhere else to other actions to support a smaller enterprise, family enterprises. That's a huge issue in Greece. How many among our children work in a family business and they are not declared there? It is relatives. They are not subsidized. It is prohibited by the law to be subsidized. Yes, but they are not recorded as employees, because the legislation says that if you are a first-degree relative, you can work without pay. But when parents grow, what will these people do? The family, for me, the Greek family, is a wish. Is a blessing, excuse me, it's a blessing. It is not customary abroad to see that. On the other side, it is also a break because we need to help from the start the people becoming independent. So we're talking about employment. Quite often we are given the opportunity, and what we see in the projects is that we don't have interested people. We cannot cover the positions, and this is a concern. I hope that with the new legislation, we will be able to broaden this. I have seen it with our own children. Until February, they could not be registered in DIPA, the Public Employment Service, because they had a percentage of disability for 35. And today they are people who are looking actively for a job. This is very important. And the collaboration with DIPA in the program of cerebral damages, and they came to us and they stayed with us. And they said that we need support in being able to have to give each person the necessary time to establish their job profile. We are all here together and we need to go on. I leave this conference very optimistic. It's the first time because for the first time in the ESPD conferences, we have had so great use of the words supported employment. Most workshops, most presentations use it a lot, as if ESPD has changed. So this is very, very hopeful because it carries with it this mindset of the European Union that indeed something is under change. We have said what the impediments are, but it looks like it's changing, and it looks like we are changing here in Greece. No microphone. Unfortunately, the person is not using a microphone, so they cannot be translated.
Ένας πρόεδρος του Σωματείου της Καστοριάς, είπαν ότι οι 200 θέσεις που θα είναι μόνο.
I heard about that, yes. Mrs. Hormova told us in the other conference on autism. It is true that when they asked us about proposals, we said Attica and the rest of Greece. This is our proposal. I believe that they do it. I mean, Dimitris has gone, but it's a matter of time, I think. Again, off the microphone.
Υπάρχει ακόμα το ανθρώπινο στοιχείο. Δηλαδή, εγώ πάω στους φίλους μου και μου λένε φέρτε μας παιδιά. Και το πρόβλημα εκεί σε εμάς είναι οι γονείς που λένε δεν μπορεί να δουλέψει. Ναι. Αλλά είναι πολύ πιο εύκολο να προσεγγίσει εργοδότη. Ναι, το ξέρω, Ξένια. Είναι πραγματικά.
Yes, Ksenia, I agree with you. It is a problem. We, as professionals, will raise the issue. We don't discuss it because we don't have an objective sample since it is a pilot project. But yes, Ms. Hormova mentioned that and announced it. Well, step by step, one thing at a time. So let's stay in touch. I think this is necessary. We are all together